All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BETONLINE and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited here to get into a preview for a big game early in the season. The Nuggets and the Timberwolves will play tonight on prime time. Last time the Nuggets were on prime time, didn't go that well. Last time they played a divisional opponent, didn't go that well. So hopefully this one can turn around, be a little bit better on this side of things, turning the calendar on a new month. So hopefully the Nuggets can do the same thing and get just a little bit better heading into what is a pretty impressive matchup. Obviously, this one carries a lot of weight, and I'm not really surprised that this is a big deal. This is a big deal for Nuggets fans. This is a big deal for the Timberwolves. After they made the moves that they did, they still want to prove that they are better than the Nuggets. And the Nuggets, of course, want to prove that they are better than the Timberwolves after what happened last year. So lots of stuff to get into. We will get over all of it, or at least the vast majority of it in the 30 to 40 minutes that I go live today. But it should be a fun time. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast as always. Really quick, this podcast is brought to you by BetOnline, who have let you know that basketball fans, it is that time of year once again. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything. It's football, NHL, and political props. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Let's start off with this one. I have in the main topic section, is this a big game or not? Is this a big game for the Nuggets? Is this a big game for the Timberwolves? Is this something that the Nuggets, are they going to get up for in this one? Or is this going to be just the end of a road trip? Nuggets have an opportunity to complete a sweep on a road trip. That's a big deal. And it just so happens to be against the team that absolutely demolished them in the game that they played in this arena last year. The last time the Nuggets were here, I'm just seeing this comment. If you watched on the other show with me and Swipe, but that was a good moment. If you watched the playoffs last year, you would know that the last time the Nuggets were in Minnesota, they lost by 45 points. And it really wasn't that close because they were down by 50 at various points, somehow came back a little bit. And it was a disheartening performance, one where the Nuggets were up 3-2. They didn't really have a chance to to close the series there at 4-2, but would have been a big deal if they were able to keep that reverse sweep. But it just seemed like they did not have the energy, and it put things into a bad place for them in Game 7, where I think Denver thought, yeah, they can win at home. Denver can obviously defend their home court, and then they didn't defend their home court. Things happen. So Denver, I hope, has learned from that experience at least a little bit and understands that every single matchup that they get has to be taken advantage of. You can't let one slip. You can't let one just get away from you in the first quarter. And that's exactly what happened in that game. I remember being at number 38 for that game. It was horrible. It was a horrible vibe, that's for sure. Denver got owned. And it's funny because this is a regular season matchup, right? Like Denver, I think, did they tie in the regular season? No, I think Denver won the season record against Minnesota 3-1 last year, if I'm not mistaken. But they lost the first one, and they lost the first game by a lot. If you remember from last year, it was the 5th game of the season, just like this one. And Denver went into Minnesota and just got waxed. And Murray had a horrible game. Porter, I think, was pretty bad. Denver didn't really need to, like, they didn't know what to do with the fully strength Minnesota Timberwolves squad. And Denver got owned. And it ultimately ended up being like that. And I had a lot of people tell me when I reacted pretty strongly to that game and how it looked, they told me it's just a regular season game, Ryan. It's just a regular season. Not always. Like, there are some things that you can take away, including matchups, including strengths and weaknesses, including styles. Like, there's a lot of things that you can look at. And I looked at that one as like, okay, these are not your father's Minnesota Timberwolves anymore. They are a new team. And to me, like, that says a lot. It says a lot about where they're at as an organization, what they have improved and accomplished, and that they're a different version of themselves than they were before. And then they traded Karl Anthony Towns in this offseason, and I still don't really know who they are now. They're 2-2. Denver's also 2-2. I think if you had to evaluate it, Minnesota's a slightly better 2-2 than Denver is, because the way that Denver lost their first two matchups and then won their next two matchups has looked a little suspect. I'm not going to lie. Minnesota, they lost the first one to the Lakers, but the Lakers, I think, are a little bit better than people expected. And Minnesota, I think, has, like, they've still got some things to figure out for obvious reasons. But I'm going to be paying attention to this one. I'm going to be paying attention, and this will be a nice little data point prior to the playoffs. It'll be something you have to look all the way back to November 1st on, when you're in April 15th or May 20th or whatever the day is when these two teams meet. But you'll have to look back at it. This is a big division game. Denver's already lost at home to OKC. And if the Nuggets want to finish above Minnesota in the Western Conference playoffs, they may not care about it as much this year based off of what happened last year, but I think Denver would like to have a higher seed if possible. This is a big division game because Denver already lost a home game in the division, so they've got to take care of business if they really want to do it. Is there going to be any sense of revenge? Is this a similar enough team, both of these teams, where this is going to be feeling like a revenge game? I don't know. I don't know what Denver's going to be thinking about heading into this one. I think that if you gave each of them truth serum, especially the starters that were actually on the floor in that game, you would definitely feel that, yeah, they feel some kind of way about Minnesota. They don't like Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't like them. Jokic and Gobert have obviously had their battles. Jamal Murray, I think, feels passed by a guy like Anthony Edwards, and it's been deserved. Like, Ant has been way better than Murray over the course of these past couple of years. Jaden McDaniels absolutely flummoxed Michael Porter Jr., and then Jaden McDaniels tried to throw down a windmill dunk in Game 7, after the game was effectively decided. Everybody had given up, and Jaden McDaniels was like, I'm going to showboat a little bit. I can tell you that Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, those guys, I think they remember that. So we're going to see. We're going to see whether these two teams can keep it civil. It wouldn't surprise me if this one got a little feisty. It also wouldn't surprise me if Denver was just like, you know what? It's a regular season game. It's a new year, new team. And I'm not sure that's the mentality that you want taking into this game, because Denver has an opportunity to get themselves back above 500. And if they lose out on that opportunity, and if they do so in a pretty embarrassing way, then that will be, I think, a pretty important data point for the Nuggets in this one, and what we can expect from this Nuggets team for the rest of the year. If they roll over and just act like this is any other game, they'll lose. They'll lose pretty badly. So I want to see them fight. I want to see them really commit to this. I want to see Jamal Murray prove that he can play against this team. I want to see Michael Porter prove that he can play against this team. And I want to see them try to lock in. I want to see what Christian Brown does in the starting lineup. There's a lot of different things that we're going to get into on the other side. Plenty of different matchups. Obviously, with the Julius Randle trade, there are different things to evaluate this particular year. So let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the new rosters, what it's going to look like, and how there are new targets for both teams on both ends. We will be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Also, if you're listening on the audio side, hit me with a 5-star review. That would be really helpful. I've got a 4.9 star rating on over 220, I think, reviews over there. And they do really mean a lot. It helps share out the podcast. It makes it so that people realize, hey, this is a big deal. This is a nice podcast. This is a nice show. And so you guys have really helped me out on that stuff. So thank you very much for it. Anybody that is still like not sure whether they want to listen, it helps. It definitely helps those folks, especially when new reviews come in. Cedric says, got a question, Ryan. Do you think Jamal is hungry inside to win after how he was embarrassed by the Wolves last playoffs? I don't know. I'm sure he probably is hungry. I'm sure he's probably pretty furious about the way that things went. He's still a very competitive person. He wants to be the best version of himself that he can be. And he thinks that that is a superstar. That is an all-star. That is somebody who can be in the same category as an Anthony Edwards or a Devin Booker or a Donovan Mitchell or somebody of that ilk. Those guys have passed him up of late. Part of that is because of the health, but part of that is because of the way that Murray performs in the regular season. And then on top of that, Murray, who usually then elevates himself above those other guys in the playoffs, did not do so last year. So I think he's got to be hungry. He's pretty healthy. I know that the ankle roll probably didn't help matters, but he's been playing a lot of minutes so far in this early part of the season. He looks pretty good from a physical standpoint. Just going back and looking at the clutch numbers, I know a lot of people were worried about the fact that he didn't pass to Jokic that one time in the clutch. He's got a 62% true shooting in the clutch and has done pretty well. The team has done pretty well when he's taken shots. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's been that bad in those like really tough moments. I do think that during the first, second, and third quarter, he's got to get better. And I wonder what it's going to look like against his old foil, Anthony Edwards. Edwards put the clamps on him last year in the playoffs. Jaden McDaniels did something similar. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he actually did a pretty good job against. Although when you have him in concert with one of those other two guys, it can be pretty tough. But that matchup has not changed. Like that one is still very tough. And on top of it, Dante DiVincenzo, probably a better size matchup for him than Mike Conley. So it wouldn't surprise me if Mike Conley did not close this game and Dante DiVincenzo did, or Nickeil Alexander-Walker did, but more likely DiVincenzo for the spacing. That is probably going to happen. I'm very interested to see how it evolves, but there's no real target for Jamal on that end unless he hunts Mike Conley early. And then at that point, it's just like try to navigate and get the best shot that you can, but not necessarily for Jamal. So it will be interesting to see. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, obviously, that changes up Minnesota and their rotation a lot. Right now, Minnesota's running an 8.5-man rotation with Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert. You know the group. And then off the bench, it's the main three guys are Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, and Naz Reid. Naz Reid, obviously, won Sixth Man of the Year last year. Dante DiVincenzo, one of the most important bench players and with the way that he plays. And then everybody in Denver knows how good Nickeil Alexander-Walker is. You'll get some Joe Ingles, but surprisingly, not a lot of Rob Dillingham to start the year. He has yet to play. Only 9 players have played for Minnesota so far this year. They haven't really had any garbage time. So found that pretty interesting. For Denver, the Brown in the lineup, or not the Brown, I thought the Brown, I was going to talk about the Brown lineup, but Christian Brown is in the lineup for KCP. That's obviously a big change for Denver and a big change in this matchup for some different reasons. 9-man rotation with the starters. You've got Westbrook, Strawther, Watson, and Saric off the bench. Saric is only playing 9.8 minutes per game, but he is playing every game so far. So he is a part of the rotation. But he's honestly closer to where Joe Ingles is than where other guys are. To me, comparing these benches is no real contest. That's where I'm going to start with this. The Wolves bench is so much better than the Nuggets bench. just from a versatility standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, from a talent standpoint, that group is really good. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is very, very talented and very, very versatile. He will probably spend a lot of time guarding Russell Westbrook initially, but there will be other guys that guard him too. Julius Randle staggers with that second group. He'll be part of that. There will be times where Jaden McDaniels staggers, or Mike Conley staggers, or Anthony Edwards doesn't really stagger. They've mostly paired Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert together, which I think is interesting. But what they're ultimately going to look like is Julius Randle post-ups and Naz Reid spacing the floor, and maybe they'll run some sets for DiVincenzo with their second unit. But their defense, in theory, should be pretty good. In practice, it actually hasn't been, because the Randle-Naz Reid combo has not been that great. I just don't think that the Nuggets can take advantage of that. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if they decide to stagger Jaden McDaniels, and when Michael Porter staggers, McDaniels staggers and guards him, and then Randle guards Peyton Watson, and then Naz Reid guards Dario Saric, and then that means those three have to match up on the other end. Like, does Peyton Watson guard Julius Randle? Can he handle that physicality? Can Saric match up physically with Naz Reid? Can Michael Porter stay attached enough to Jaden McDaniels to stop him from shooting and making as many shots as he did in Game 7? There's a lot of questions. And that doesn't even get into DiVincenzo, who's just I think, a better upgrade over what Julian Strawther is right now. So there's a lot that Denver has to overcome with that matchup. And I think that that's probably going to be, if Denver loses, where the game is lost. Just because I think that Denver goes -12 to -15 with that bench. Can Russell Westbrook overcome that? Can he attack downhill and get to the rim against a group that doesn't have tremendous rim protection with Naz Reid and Julius Randle out there? Maybe. But if he's being guarded by Nickeil Alexander-Walker, then he might not get as many opportunities as you would hope. Like, Nickeil might pick him free. He might block him at the rim. He also might get muscled out of the way and commit fouls, but I just need to see it before I believe it on this one. Where Denver might have a better advantage, though, is with their starters. Kind of surprising because of the way that the starters really struggled against the T-Wolves last year. Christian Braun, going to be a big, big difference. That'll be very fascinating to see how he handles that matchup. He's going to guard Anthony Edwards, undoubtedly. And I think that Ant will guard Murray. So it means that Conley is probably going to guard Christian Braun. Can Denver take advantage of that? Can they use him as a rover, like somebody who can cut into the middle of the lane, grab some offensive rebounds, get some easy possessions? Will he be able to shoot over Mike Conley a little bit? There's some stuff that I think that they could do with that, but it involves Christian Braun being trustable. And we're still on Game 5 of him starting, so I don't know what it's ultimately going to look like there. On the other end, Anthony Edwards is averaging 13 threes attempted per game. That's a lot. It probably bails out Braun a little bit, because Braun will probably commit some fouls against Ant if Ant does drive relentlessly. So I'm curious to see how he handles that. Can he contest enough of those to make Ant like 4 of 13, 3 of 13, somewhere around there? Or is Ant going to drive to the rim a little bit more frequently? And can Braun avoid committing fouls that way? He really is the only matchup for Ant for Denver, because if Aaron Gordon is forced to guard Anthony Edwards, then can Michael Porter handle Julius Randle? I don't know. We'll see. I would expect Michael Porter to foul in that case, not going to lie. But the other thing offensively that Denver really has an advantage over, Jokic being guarded by Julius Randle is a lot different than being guarded by Karl-Anthony Towns. Just a lot. Can he take advantage of that? Can the Nuggets take advantage of that? Can they force Rudy Gobert to guard Jokic? That, I think, is actually the most likely scenario, is that Gobert guards Jokic straight up, and the Wolves just kind of live with that. They don't go with the rover defense with Randle defending Jokic and then Gobert guarding Aaron Gordon. I'm going to go ahead and guess that the Wolves tonight just go straight up with their defensive matchups. They'll have Ant guard Murray. They'll have Jaden McDaniels guard Porter. They'll have Julius Randle guard Aaron Gordon. And they'll have Rudy Gobert guard Jokic. I think that's a good matchup for Jokic. I think that as long as he can make his shots, as long as he can get into good position, I think that he will be really good tonight. The question, of course, is whether Aaron Gordon can take advantage of that matchup, whether Michael Porter can get free, whether Jamal Murray can get free, whether Christian Brown can make his shots. And I have a lot more questions there, obviously, because Minnesota still got a good defense. I know it hasn't looked perfect for them to start the year, but they've got personnel that can really hurt Denver. So can Denver get out and run, force them to cross-match a little bit, get into some more advantageous positions? Or are the Nuggets going to be taking the ball out from under the basket a lot because Minnesota's scoring? We'll have to see what happens. Let's take another break. When we come back, we are going to do some predictions. We're going to talk about what I expect to actually happen, and you're probably not going to like it. We'll be back on the other side. But first, want to let everybody know about number 38. They've been doing a great job hosting all of these Nuggets watch parties, Buffs watch parties. We've mostly been doing Buffs while CU has been incredible. I think they're 6-2 right now. That's a crazy record for CU. I think they're bowl eligible at this point. That was a big story during this last weekend. If you're interested in getting involved in the Buffs watch parties, if you want to just go have fun with your friends, make sure to go check out number 38. They've got indoor-outdoor seating. Not sure how warm it's going to be on this particular Saturday, but if it is warm enough, take advantage of the outdoor patio and the showing that they have, the massive screens, awesome food, great drinks, lots of great things to get over at number 38 in the Rhino area, and let them know that you came from Mile High Sports. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Let's wrap things up by doing some predictions here. Minnesota still has their own problems. I think that there's still some things that they've got to figure out that they're going to have to match up with. Randall's not a perfect fit. He is averaging 23 points, and he is shooting 60% from the field. But the way that he plays and the way that he slows some things down, takes the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands. You don't necessarily want the ball in Ant's hands all the time because he's still not a perfect decision maker, but he is the best that they have. And so you want to make sure to get him the ball back as often as possible. If this game does come down to the clutch, they'll probably just force feed Ant, make sure that he's in a good position. And how Denver guards that, I think, is really interesting. Can Jokic be up at the level against Ant, and can he contain him? Jokic hasn't been great defensively this year, but he is better in the fourth quarter and overtime than he is in the first three quarters, just having to save some energy. Can Aaron Gordon rotate over and take over Rudy Gobert in that situation? Absolutely. But will Michael Porter then be able to rotate onto Julius Randle? I think is a fair question. How can the Nuggets handle that? What can they do to make sure they're putting themselves into the best place to win? Can they get this game to a clutch time matchup? Because Jokic has been great in clutch time. If you give him an opportunity, I think he'll be awesome. He knows how to take over in these moments, and he's been very, very good so far in the clutch this year. Murray's been surprisingly good. Aaron Gordon's been locked in. Michael Porter's been bad. Christian Brown has been okay. He's had a couple of good moments, but most of it has been defensively. And really, that's enough. You're not expecting him to contribute on the offense and clutch that much, but I just think that they're going to try to dare CB to make shots. They might put Rudy Gobert on Christian Brown at times this game, or whoever their big man is. They might dare Christian Brown to hit some threes. And a lot of it is not just because Christian's shooting, 36, 37%. A lot of it is up here. A lot of it is the mind games and trying to change things up. It's something that OKC would do, Mark Dagnall would do. Chris Finch would definitely do it too. So I'm curious to see how Denver handles that and how somebody like Christian Brown would handle that. I think he's got a good mental, to be clear, but it is very psychological to like hey, catch the ball right at the 3-point line and nobody's guarding you on purpose. So it's something to think about. I am not sure who's going to have a good game for Denver other than Jokic. I feel pretty good about Jokic, obviously. Who wouldn't feel good about Jokic having a good game? But my instincts kind of say that Murray and MPJ struggle in this one. Maybe they rise above the matchup, but I think that Jaden McDaniels does a really good job when he's matched up against MPJ. And Anthony Edwards so far has done a really good job when matched up against Murray. Now, that might change, and maybe Ant doesn't spend as much time on Murray because he has to focus on the offensive end a little bit. Maybe it's Dante DiVincenzo in the clutch that Murray has to get past. If that's the case, I think that Murray can be successful, but I also know that DiVincenzo is a pretty solid defender, so he's got his work cut out for him. He has to be able to make it pretty consistently. Can Aaron Gordon have an impact on this matchup? Like I've predicted that Julius Randle will guard him and not Rudy Gobert, but what if it is Rudy Gobert? What's going to happen for Aaron Gordon? Can he be impactful in this matchup? Is he going to stand out on the 3-point line and take some threes? Or is he just going to hang around the dunker spot and leave Rudy Gobert to help in those situations? I'm not sure if that's a good idea either. So hopefully Aaron Gordon can stay involved, maybe do some weak side screening in some situations for a guy like Mike and try to free up some players at the 3-point line. That would be a big deal. Now, it's a little bit different to try to free up Christian Brown on the weak side than it is KCP, because the Nuggets would have trusted KCP in that situation if he could get free. Do they trust Christian Brown to hit that shot? Do they trust Aaron Gordon to hit that shot? Maybe. I'm curious to see what they do. Like I said in the second segment, I think that Denver's bench kind of crashes down a little bit. Russ, Strother, we'll see whether they can get hot, but it is just a tough matchup for Denver with the talent that Minnesota has. It's one of the things, like, if Denver really does struggle with it this time, and there's some other things that they got to think about, it wouldn't surprise me if Denver has to make a move, because the bench I thought was going to be pretty good. But I just look at this matchup and I can't see an advantage, especially with that second unit. The only one I can really see is if Strother can get free and hit some shots. But Peyton Watson's going to have his hands full, especially if he's guarding Julius Randle a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets into big foul trouble, like 5 fouls in 12 minutes, something like that. Wouldn't surprise me if Dario Saric got into foul trouble trying to keep up with Naz Reid or just kind of letting him blow by a little bit. So I think Nuggets fans have to go in with pretty low expectations for the second unit this game. That could look pretty ugly. Jokic, though, like, I feel very comfortable that Jokic is going to have a great game, probably around 30, 20, 10, somewhere in that general range. If he has a 30, 20, 10 game tonight, you heard it here first. He's going to be great. I really do feel that. I just don't know whether I can trust anybody around him to match that energy and to really be that successful. Maybe it happens. Maybe 2 days off after the back-to-back, and you really are looking into how to excel at this matchup. Maybe there really is a revenge factor with guys like Murray and Porter and Gordon. But if there's not, and if they're just treating it like any other game, I do think that Minnesota kind of takes it from them. I have an initial prediction here of Minnesota winning 112-104. I think Denver's offense struggles a little bit tonight. Although they did figure some things out against Brooklyn, although Brooklyn's not supposed to be like any great shakes defensively. So I don't know what it's going to look like. And Frank says it here. Russ will bring energy too. Consistent shooting is the question. I agree. Like in this one, I don't have to worry about Russ matching the energy for what the Nuggets need in this game. What I do have to worry about is the effectiveness and the direction that he goes. He was great against Brooklyn. I don't want to take that away from him. I talked about it yesterday. He was tremendous. And if Denver could get that version of Russ every game, he would be a 6 Man of the Year candidate, undoubtedly. But I just don't know what it's going to look like. And he's also had some pretty bad matchups against teams like Minnesota that have this level of rim protection, that have this level of perimeter defense, what is it going to be like 3 of 12, 1 of 6 from 3, 5 turnovers? Is it going to be different? Is it going to be 7 of 12? Is it 2 of 2 from 3 like this last game? And does he get to the free throw line a little bit more? Like, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how he can handle it, but he's going to be attacking. There's no question about it. And he should be attacking. Whether he has success, I think, is a fair question. Josie says, he asks, what player having a good game apart from Yoke and Murray gives the Nuggets the best chance of winning? It is undoubtedly Michael Porter Jr. Mike has really struggled against Minnesota. Last year in the playoffs, he averaged 10.7 points per game, and he shot like 30% from 3 and 37% from the field. He was horrible. And people give him a pass for it, obviously, because he was really, really good against the Lakers to kind of get Denver through while Murray was struggling in that matchup. A lot of people struggled in that Lakers matchup other than Jokic and MPJ. And so Porter needs a lot of credit for that. But in the last few times that he's faced a really talented perimeter defense, Miami in the NBA Finals and then Minnesota last year, he has really come back down to earth and been disrupted. We've seen so far this year that he can be disrupted by good perimeter defense. He didn't face good perimeter defense against Brooklyn, and he got free a little bit. That was good. But he also just lost a lot of focus on the defensive end early in this season. And if he loses track of Jaden McDaniels, of all people, then McDaniels is going to outplay him. Or, hey, maybe McDaniels misses shots and MPJ makes shots. And that could be a really big flip. I honestly think that that's probably a critical flip for the game. Who has a better game between MPJ and Jaden McDaniels? We've seen McDaniels get the better of him a couple times. But we've also seen MPJ hit crazy shots and really take over a game in some of these cases. So I am very curious to see how he handles it. There's a lot going on right now. Ramona Shelburne had what I thought was a really good article on ESPN. She was in town for the preseason a couple weeks ago, and I thought she did a really good job of illustrating some of the problems that Denver has faced and some of the issues that they're currently running into, both internal and external. So go take a look at that. I think it's a pretty good understanding of what the issues are at this current moment, and I think Ramona does a really good job. Okay, everybody, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and number 38. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast as always, everybody. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win tonight. Will Denver beat Minnesota and kind of get some revenge? Or am I going to be proven right and Minnesota gets the dub? Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.